There's a very specific kind of nightmare that I think almost everyone has had at some point.
Uh-oh.
You walk into an exam room, the lights are humming, you sit down, turn over the paper, and you realize you studied for the completely wrong test.
Oh, the classic anxiety dream. I studied for math, but this is clearly 18th century history.
Exactly. It's that fear of the curveball, that deep-seated fear that, the rules have changed while you weren't looking.
That they decided to just shake things up to mess with you.
Right. But today, we're going to look at something that effectively kills that nightmare, at least for one very specific group of people.
We are, and honestly, in the world of standardized testing, what we're looking at today is, well, it's kind of a unicorn. It shouldn't exist, but it does.
We're talking about the YDT. That's the foreign language test.
Yeah.
And we aren't just giving you generic study tips.
Now, get a good night's sleep here.
We have our hands on a document that is essentially a statistical blueprint of this exam. It's titled YDT Injilice Soru Daluman 2019-2025.
Which sounds incredibly dry. Question distribution. It sounds like a spreadsheet you'd ignore.
Yeah.
But when you actually look at the columns on this chart, it's shocking.
It's the consistency, right? That's what jumped out at me immediately.
It's the absolute refusal to change. We're looking at a 7-year span here, from 2019 all the way through the projections for 2025.
Okay.
And in that time, the distribution of the 80 questions on this English exam has remained identical.
I want to pause on that because usually these tests drift a little, Maybe one year they test reading harder, or the next year they add more obscure grammar, they tweak the numbers.
Right. You usually see a wobble, a variance of maybe 5 or 10% between sections just to keep students on their toes. But here,
Nothing.
0 deviation. The number of questions in every single category is exactly the same year after year.
So if you're a student, or if you're helping a student prepare, this isn't just data, this is a map.
It's a battle plan. Think about it. If you walked into the exam in 2019 and then hopped in a time machine to 2025, the shape of the test, the architecture of it, would be exactly what you remember.
That's a massive strategic advantage.
It is. We can stop stressing about what will be on the test and focus entirely on how to answer the specific slots we know are coming.
So that is our mission today. We're going to go through this exam, question by question, chronologically.
Yep.
We're going to turn this raw data into a strategy, because 80 questions is a marathon.
It is. And like any marathon, you need to know the terrain. You need to know where the hills are and where the water stations are.
Let's start at the starting line. You open the booklet, questions 1 through 5. This is the vocabulary section, or Kelime Bilgisi.
Right.
Now, normally vocabulary is where people panic, because English has, what, 1 million words?
Give or take, depending on how you count.
Yeah.
And that's the trap. You think you need to memorize the entire dictionary. You picture yourself drowning in flashcards.
But the exam limits the chaos.
It does. It is always exactly 5 questions. Never 4, never 6, just 5.
But looking at the source here, it gets even more specific than just 5 words. There's a formula involved, isn't there?
There is. The breakdown follows a very strict pattern. You aren't just getting 5 random words pulled from a hat.
You're not.
No. You are almost guaranteed to see 1 phrasal verb, 1 adjective, 1 adverb, 1 verb, and 1 noun.
That is incredibly specific. It's like a recipe.
It is. And think about what that means for your study habits. I see so many students spending hours memorizing lists of obscure nouns. Names of tools, specific types of clouds, whatever.
Right.
But on the exam, there's only 1 slot for a noun. Just 1.
So you're over-preparing for 20% of the section and ignoring the rest.
Exactly. And the big one people ignore is the phrasal verb.
Oh, everyone hates phrasal verbs. Get up, get down, get over, get away. They all sound the same but mean completely different things. It's a nightmare.
They are annoying, I admit. But here's the thing. With 100% certainty that one of those first 5 questions will be a phrasal verb.
Okay.
So if you skip studying them because they're difficult or because you think, oh, maybe they won't ask one this year, you're voluntarily throwing away 1 point before you even start.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
It allows you to audit your own list. You need a balanced diet. 1 of each.
Precisely. Don't binge on nouns. Spread your betting chips across the 5 categories. If your study list is 90% adjectives, you're studying for a test that doesn't exist.
Okay, so we've survived the vocab warm-up. We're 5 questions in. Now we hit the next block. Questions 6 through 15. The grammar section. Bilgisi.
This is where the heavy lifting of the language mechanics happens. It's 10 questions, so double the value of the vocabulary section.
And again, the data here is, well, it's surprising. I think we tend to view grammar as this massive, sprawling web of rules where everything is equally important.
But it's not. The test definitely plays favorites. If you look at the subtopic breakdown in the source, the test relies heavily on two specific pillars:
Which are
tenses and conjunctions.
tenses and conjunctions. Why those two?
Well, tenses control time and conjunctions control logic. They are the glue of the language. According to the trend data, you were looking at 3 to 4 questions purely on tenses past, present, perfect, future, and another 3 to 4 questions on conjunctions.
So the because, although, however.
Exactly, those connecting words.
So wait, let me do the math here. Out of 10 grammar questions,
Yeah.
somewhere between 6 and 8 of them are just those two topics.
Yes, it's an enormous concentration. Now, compare that to prepositions. In, on, at. Everyone stresses about prepositions because they don't always make logical sense.
Right. Why are we in a car but on a bus? Why do we arrive at the airport but in London? It drives learners crazy.
Exactly. You could spend weeks mastering those tiny nuances, but on the YDT, it's consistently just 2 questions.
Same pronouns.
Usually just one. Sometimes it's combined with quantifiers words like some, any, much.
This is the ROI, the return on investment we were talking about. If I have 1 week left to study, I shouldn't be crying over prepositions.
No. You should be hammering tenses and conjunctions. That's where the points are. If you master how to connect sentences, which is really what conjunctions are, you control the bulk of the grammar section. You have to be strategic.
Okay, so we're 15 questions deep. We've done the foundations. Vocab is done. Grammar is done. Now, looking at this blueprint, we seem to enter a different phase of the exam. The numbers get bigger.
We are entering the big 3. These are the sections that will make or break your score.
The king of the hill.
The absolute monster of this exam is reading comprehension, or paragraph.
This is the endurance test. This is usually where students start to fade.
It is. It's the single largest section of the exam. 15 questions.
That's nearly 20% of your total score right there.
Right. But let's demystify it, because reading comprehension sounds overwhelming. It sounds like you have to read a giant novel.
Yeah.
But the structure is very specific. It is exactly 5 different texts.
5 texts.
And attached to each text are 3 questions. So 5 texts, 3 questions each. That gives you your 15 points.
I think knowing that helps with the panic.
Yeah.
You aren't reading for an hour. You're doing 5 distinct mini-missions.
Exactly. That is the perfect mindset. You read a text, usually about 200 to 300 words, and you have to solve 3 mysteries about it. Then you wipe the slate clean and start the next one.
So the information from text 1 doesn't carry over to text 2.
Not at all. And that should change how you practice. I see people just, reading articles and hoping for the best. They scroll through the news in English and think that counts as studying.
That's too passive.
It's browsing, not studying. You need to simulate the extraction process. Read a short text and force yourself to answer 3 specific, detailed questions about it. You need to practice the search and retrieve mental muscle.
Be a hunter, not just a reader.
Exactly.
Now, sitting right next to reading comprehension is a section I was actually really surprised by. Translation.
Chivery.
It is surprisingly large.
It's 12 questions. That's bigger than the grammar section.
It is, and for some reason people underestimate it. Maybe because it feels mechanical. Or they think, oh, I speak Turkish, I speak English, I'll figure it out.
But it's 12 solid points.
And the breakdown is perfectly symmetrical.
Symmetrical how?
It is always 6 questions asking you to translate English to Turkish, and 6 questions asking for Turkish to English. It hasn't changed once in 7 years.
So that's 27 questions if you combine reading and translation. That's more than a third of the exam just on processing text.
Exactly. If you are a grammar wizard, but you read slowly or you can't flip between languages quickly, you are going to struggle.
Yeah.
But there is a hack for the translation section.
Oh, a hack. Let's hear it.
Well, because it's multiple choice, you don't actually have to translate the whole sentence in your head. You don't need to be a poet.
Okay.
You just need to match the anchors.
The main subject and the main verb. That's it. If the English sentence says, the government announced, look at the Turkish options immediately. If the verb isn't duyurdu or asiklazi, if it's panlade, planned, or redeti, rejected, eliminate it.
You don't even need to read the rest of the sentence.
Often, no. You can usually solve these 12 questions just by matching the structural skeleton, the subject, and the verb, without knowing every single adjective or filler word.
That is a massive time saver. You aren't translating, you're matching patterns.
Exactly. And since we know there are 12 of them, Being fast at this is probably the quickest way to boost your overall score. It buys you time for the harder sections.
Okay, moving on. We've hit the halfway point. We've covered the heavy reading.
Mm-hmm.
But now we get into the middle section of the test, which I always feel is a bit tricky.
Mm-hmm.
It's where the skills start to blend together.
The critical middle. This is where we see sentence completion, or kumle tamamlama.
This is 8 questions, so almost as big as the grammar section.
It is the largest section after reading and translation. And it's tough because it requires you to hold 2 thoughts in your head at once. They give you half a sentence, and you have to pick the other half that makes sense.
So it's both grammatically and logically correct.
Right. It's a bridge between grammar rules and reading comprehension. You can't just use grammar because 2 options might be grammatically correct, but only one makes sense in context. It tests if you can follow a train of thought.
And then right after that, we have the closed test.
Yes.
I love the name closed test. It sounds like a mystery novel. Or something from a detective show. For those who don't know, what exactly is it?
It's basically a paragraph with holes in it. You get a text, and 5 words or phrases have been deleted. You have to choose the right one to fill the gap.
So it's vocabulary, but in context.
Context is the key word. Unlike the first 5 questions, where you just have a single sentence, here you have a flow. You need to understand what happened in the previous sentence to choose the right word for this one.
And that's always 5 questions.
Consistent at 5 questions every year.
And speaking of flow, we have a block of questions that I think of as the editor section. These are the logic questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
These textual integrity. We have 2 types here. First, paragraph completion, paragraph tamamlama, which is 5 questions.
That's where they pull a sentence out of the middle of a paragraph.
And you have to put it back, yes. And the second type is irrelevant sentence, anlamyu bozan kumle, another 5 questions.
This is the odd one out.
Exactly. You get a paragraph numbered 1 through 5. One of those sentences is an intruder. It doesn't belong.
I find these so tricky because sometimes the intruder looks like it belongs. It uses the same key words.
That's the trap. It's the classic distraction. The paragraph might be about growing apples, and the intruder sentence is about cooking apples. It uses the word apple, so your brain thinks, oh, this fits.
But logic-wise, it breaks the flow.
Exactly. So this section isn't testing your grammar, it's testing your focus. It's testing if you can spot a break in the narrative. And knowing there are exactly 10 of these logic questions, 5 and 5 means you need to shift gears. You are playing the role of a ruthless editor.
We are getting close to the finish line of the 80 questions. We have about 15 questions left on the blueprint. And these seem to be the social skills section.
That's a great way to put it. These are the conversational and situational skills. And again, the symmetry is beautiful. We have 3 categories, and they are split 5, 5, and 5.
Predictable as always.
First, we have dialogue completion, dialogue tamamlama. 5 questions. You get a script of 2 people talking, and a line is missing.
This tests more than just words, right? It tests register.
Yes. Are they friends? Is it a boss and an employee? If the first person is speaking formally, the answer can't be, yo, what's up? It tests social awareness within language.
Then we have restatement, or yakin anlamla kumle.
This is 5 questions where they give you a sentence and ask, which of the following means the exact same thing?
This is pure logic again. It's synonym gymnastics.
It is. You have to ensure that the intensity is the same. If the original sentence says extremely hot, the answer can't just be hot. It has to be scorching or very hot. It tests precision.
And finally, the last 5 questions. Situation. Daruma yugana fade.
These are my favorite. They give you a scenario. You are late for a meeting, your boss is angry, and you want to apologize but not make an excuse. What do you say?
It's like a role-playing game.
It is. And it tests functional language. Can you navigate a social situation in English?
You know, when we break it down like this block by block, the exam stops looking like this giant, scary monster. It's actually just a collection of very specific mini-games.
That is the aha moment. When you look at the number 80 and you see this unchanging blueprint from 2019 to 2025, you realize the YDT is a machine. It is a standardized metric.
So how does a student use this machine concept? Because it's one thing to know the structure, but how do I use this information tomorrow when I sit down to study?
It means you can use your practice tests as diagnostic tools. Let's say you take a practice exam and get a 60 out of 80. Most students just say, ugh, I got a 60, I need to study English more.
Which is useless advice. It's too vague. That's like saying, I need to be healthier.
Exactly. A strategic student looks at the blueprint. They check the question numbers. If they realize they missed 4 questions in the irrelevant sentence section, They know exactly what their problem is.
They don't have a grammar problem, they have a logic and flow problem.
Precisely. Or, if they consistently miss question number 2 or 3, they know they are weak on adjectives or adverbs specifically. You map your errors to the blueprint.
So if you keep missing the phrasal verb question,
Stop studying noun lists. Go study phrasal verbs. You are auditing your own performance against a known standard.
that is so empowering. It takes the mystery out of it. The anxiety usually comes from the unknown. What are they going to ask me? But here we know. We know there will be 15 reading questions. We know there'll be 12 translations.
We know there will be exactly 10 grammar questions. It allows you to visualize the marathon before you run it. You know where the hills are. You know where the flat sprints are.
So let's recap the major landmarks on this map. If you're walking into the YDT tomorrow, what are the big numbers you need to keep locked in your head?
The big 3 for volume. 15 reading comprehension questions, 12 translation questions, 10 grammar questions. That is nearly half the test right there.
And don't forget the sentence completion with 8 questions.
Right. And then everything else, vocabulary, close, dialogue, logic, is built in distinct, unchanging blocks of 5.
It is beautifully structured.
It is. It's consistent. And because it's consistent, it's beatable.
For everyone listening who is prepping for this exam, or helping someone who is, I hope this deep dive makes the task feel a little less daunting. The exam isn't a mystery box. It's a clearly defined set of 80 tasks. You know exactly what they are.
And actually, that leads me to one final thought.
What's that?
If we know the content is this predictable, if we know exactly how many questions appear in each category, then the real test isn't just about English knowledge anymore.
What is it then?
It becomes a test of time management.
Oh, that's a really good point. The blueprint gives you the clock.
Exactly. If you know reading comprehension is 5 texts and you know translation is 12 questions, ask yourself, how would you allocate your minutes differently? Would you rush through the 5 vocabulary questions to save time for the 5 texts?
Wow.
Now that you have the blueprint, the strategy isn't just what you study, but how you spend every single second of that exam time.
That is the ultimate takeaway. The blueprint gives you control over your time, not just your topics. Good luck to everyone studying out there. You've got the code now. Go crack it. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.